So good morning, everyone. Welcome back to our virtual career cafe. I am Amy Goode from the Community Education Center and will be your moderator for today. We are recording the session to make it available for other students who couldn't join us this morning. Today's guests are Amanda Balon from Big Maple Family Farm and Big Maple Farms Natural Therapies, and Dr. Allyson Anderson, a farm animal veterinarian with Headwaters Veterinary Service. So I want to thank our guests for joining us today. We'll start off with just telling us a little bit about yourself and your personal career pathway. Allison, do you want to go ahead first?
Sure. Yep. I graduated in 2011 from Countersport. I went to school there my whole career. After high school, I've wanted to be a large animal or a veterinarian for most of my life. But after school, I didn't really want to do 8 years of schooling, and I was good at chemistry and math. So I went for chemical engineering to RIT in Rochester for a year. And then I realized that it was going to be too much work to get a degree to not do what I wanted to do. So I transferred after that first year to Penn State. And I guess that would be one little life advice. If you're interested at all in an agricultural career, Penn State is a great place to start because they have so many opportunities. And you've got lots of different ways to go with your degree. So I went straight into college after high school. A pretty typical path other than that, 1 year of chemical engineering. And then after college, to become a veterinarian, it takes 8 years of school. So I went from Penn State to the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. Excuse me.
Oh boy.
Yep, go ahead, buddy. And I did vet school there. It's a split campus. So you do your small animal stuff and most of your classwork in town in Philly. And then the large animal stuff is all out at New Bolton Center, about an hour away in Kennett Square, which has its pluses and minuses. So yeah, that's my career pathway. And then I moved home right away and started my own practice, which isn't typically advised, but it's worked out well for me. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. You're muted, Amy.
Amanda, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So, hi guys, I'm in the sugar shack right now. We're actually finishing the last little bit of maple syrup this morning. So a little bit about me is I'm a 5th generation farmer and did not kind of go on that career path. I have a degree in counseling. So I wanted to help people, kind of went on to be a therapist and do that kind of stuff. And then I decided to start a nonprofit using the farm. And so now I co-own the farm with my parents. We do a lot of value-added products like maple syrup, canned goods. We sell meat by the cut. And then I also do therapeutic horseback riding. So that's kind of what my career path is. I do a lot of speaking engagements and things like that, and I'm always willing to learn.
Great, thank you. So Allison, do you want to kind of, like you said that you did start your own vet services after graduation. So like, what does a typical day look like for, a big farm animal vet?
Sure. Amanda, when you come back on, I want to know where your farm is. So that's not something I know. For me, so with my practice, it's been a little atypical because I started, from nothing. So it had to grow the practice and such. But like if you wanted to be a large animal vet and then you were going to go practice, you didn't care where, and you just wanted to be a large animal vet, there's a lot of differences of options there. You can go work, just with horses in a heavy equine area. You can go work just with big dairies. You can go work just beef cattle. You can be with cow calf operations. You can be with feeder operations, and it's all going to be region dependent. So that's something to think about early on, is like, if you want to be a farm animal vet, are you going to be a farm animal vet because you want to live in Potter County? Or are you going to be a farm animal vet because you love beef cows and you want to go live in Nebraska? That's a important thing, because your day-to-day is going to look very different depending, and your income is going to look very different depending on where you choose to practice. So for me, being in rural Potter County, you guys know we have ag here, but we're not like Lancaster County. We're not upstate New York with the big dairies. We're not out in the Central Plains. So it's a lot of variety for me. So if you're working with dairy farms, that's a lot of routine work, herd checks. So that's where we're checking cattle for pregnancy. You check them a few times throughout their pregnancy. It's pretty much universally via some sort of rectal procedure. So we're going, putting on big sleeves and checking either manually, so palpating with your hand the structures of the uterus to determine whether or not the cow is pregnant and how far along she is, or you can use an ultrasound unit. I have an ultrasound unit that I wear. I have goggles and a probe that I can see, and it allows me to check a little faster, a little less on my arm, and a little earlier in pregnancy I can check. So that would be something that would be routine, weekly, every other week. And then there's sick cattle. So typically a dairy farm calls you for an off-feed cow, super common early in lactation. And then there's some seasonal work. Beef cattle, you might vaccinate and preg check them at either like the spring or the fall. So that's more seasonal. Spring, all the babies are born. So there's everything, complications that come along with those. So that's a busy time of the year. And then in this area, we have a pretty active show and fair ring. So your summer is busy getting creatures ready for going to the fair and following all the state rules and health guidelines. And then this time of year, like January, February, and March starts picking up, is very slow normally, which is nice because nobody wants to be outside anyway. But that's just something to think about, depending on your path. Are you gonna be okay financially if it's slow, or you have to find some part-time work doing something else? A lot of vets in rural areas that have agriculture but not are super intense agriculture work, doing small animal as well. So are you willing to do that? In my job, I work mostly by myself, but if you work for a larger practice, you can have technicians that go with you. If you're in the small animal world, you're going to be working with technicians and assistants. And then one health hazard, which I think is kind of obvious, is just, the fact that you are dealing with these large animals that could kill you if they wanted to at any moment. So you need to be aware. And I was always of the mindset, I'm a girl, I'm about 5'5", 120 pounds, so I'm not very big. And I always thought, I'm going to do everything that a man can do. And you can do things smarter and not harder, and you can get things done. But it is going to wear and tear on your body. So no matter how bad I want to be as strong and as well built as, a 200-pound guy, my bones, my joints just aren't going to hold up. So that's a realization that I'm coming to as I'm getting older, but I didn't want to accept that. But it's a good thing to consider, depending on what your body's like, because this is a physical job.
I'm just curious, I'm guessing you typically don't work like a 8-hour shift or, like you're probably on call all the time. Is that the case or?
Yeah, yep. So to answer from the large animal vet side of things, yes, it's not typical 8-hour. One thing that's kind of difficult with doing like horses and cattle is a lot of cattle farmers are there all day long and they have emergencies during the day. A lot of horse owners are working all day, so they would rather you come in the evening for their appointments. They have emergencies in the evening, so that is kind of makes for longer days potentially. Yeah, but as a solo practitioner, I'm on call 24/7, which sounds awful, but if you consider that, I probably have half as many clients as a 2-doctor practice, and it winds up being about the same. Definitely there are days where it just boom, 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 and you get burnout. But actually what I'm doing now is I'm in the transition period. I'm actually closing down my practice, and I'm going to be teaching veterinary technician students. And that's mostly that decision's from a family standpoint, as I want to be home more and present more with my family, which is a whole nother topic. But I guess that was going to be one other big thing I wanted people to think about from this is I was able to go through school and get quite a bit of funding and come out with minimal financial burden. Because as a veterinarian, you typically graduate with a huge debt to income ratio. So it's normally not a rosy picture when you graduate. Your cost is just as much as medical school, but you make a fraction as much as a medical doctor. If you love what you're doing and you're going to stick with it and nothing is going to change that, then that works out great, but it takes away your flexibility. So if you're not sure, I guess as a high school student, as a college student, I was very gung-ho, and was so blessed that I still didn't have this financial burden, because now I still have this flexibility to make these changes as I need to. If I would have graduated with a huge amount of debt, I wouldn't have the flexibility that I have. So as you choose your career, whether it's in whether it's in an ag field or not, you need to watch your debt. You need to figure out what your income is going to be when you're done. How long are you going to have to do this job to pay off that money that you just put into it? Are you tied into working full-time for 10 years before you're going to be able to think about buying a house or slowing down? I intended to put my kid in daycare as soon as he was 6 weeks old, so I could work. And then I had a kid and I was like, oh, this is why everyone was all, saying that your mind might change, and it may not be a kid for you. It could be something else that changes. But you need to follow your dreams, but you need to have flexibility when you're making your choices.
So when you go to vet school, do you have to select small animal or large animal at that time, or do you learn both?
You have to learn everything. There's different schools of thought at different schools, so that's something to consider when you're choosing. Some schools, everyone learns broad everything. Other schools, you're able to track a lot more narrowly. I think Penn Vet is one you're able to track pretty narrowly. So you still have to learn everything. When you take that final exam, the NAVLE, which allows you to get your license, you still have to know everything, but you're able to take a lot of specified courses as you get further into your degree. Some schools, that's not the case.
So what do you like the most about your job?
I like working in the agricultural community and working with producers, farmers. It's always rewarding when you're able to actually fix an animal too. And that's why I think we go into it. But think as you mature, at least as I matured, I went into it thinking I like animals a lot more than I like people. But there's all these animals come with people. So you have to be able to interact with them and care for them as much as you do the animals. So I really like being able to help farmers make decisions that are going to improve the welfare of their animals and also the bottom line of their farm.
Then what would you say you like the least? We may have covered it.
Yeah, sometimes the on-call stuff. And I guess sometimes the worst part can also be dealing with the people. It's tough. You have to learn to set boundaries, and decide where you're going to draw those lines. The worst thing has been making mistakes too. In veterinary school, they kind of paint this picture that, you know, you don't make mistakes, and if you do make a mistake is not really your fault. You can always find a way to blame it on someone else, but you are human, not God. So that's been the biggest mistake I made was on one of my own cattle, which is a blessing and a curse, because, you know, I feel awful. But yeah, you're going to screw up.
What is the biggest challenges that you face?
Just kind of balancing work and life, figuring out how to charge, you know, that's a difficult thing to do right out of school. Being able to charge without feeling guilty. I used to take money, like an amount off every bill just because I felt bad, which is nice, except for when then it contributes to your burnout when, you know, at the end of the day, you worked all of this hard and you don't have very much to show for it. That's not so nice. And then there's definitely sometimes that, like, physically, things have been pretty challenging for me.
I'll be back to you. I'm gonna go back over to Amanda.
Okay.
Amanda, do you want to just tell us about your farm and you know, how your family farm got started, and tell us a little bit about you guys.
Yeah, so our farm started in the 1900s with my grandma's great uncle. So it was a dairy farm, and in 1986, in the economic crisis, my grandpa lost the dairy cows. So we moved into more of a hobby farm, and so we did a lot of produce. And growing up, I always just remember everybody had to work off the farm to support the farm. And so we're in the transition phase where my parents who own it also want to start transitioning it over to my generation, which would be myself. My sister doesn't want to be involved. So during that time of transition, you have to decide the path that you want to take the farm down. And so my husband and I worked together to figure out what we wanted to do. And I knew that I always wanted to help people with the farm. So that's when I decided to bring the horse organization in. And so that's in its 7th year. We do lots of different programs. We do therapeutic horseback riding. I'm going to do some horse yoga this year, liberty lessons, which is building connections with horses on the ground. And we have a bunch of mini horses that we do some books in the barn where you can read to them. And then on the farm for-profit side, because there's two types of setups here. There's nonprofit and for-profit. We do a lot of produce and direct marketing, direct selling to consumers. We kind of really happened. We came up with a subscription program where you could buy your food from us, and it would come in as like a meal kit, like Hello Fresh or something like that. So you would get like a chicken from us and some of our greens, and we co-op with the caterer. And then there's a new shift coming about where we want to kind of expand outside of our area. We want to kind of grow. So like Allison's up in Potter County. We'd like to kind of maybe start direct marketing up, McKean, Potter, Erie, Pittsburgh, that kind of stuff. So so we kind of just shift around, do a lot of direct marketing, but it's been 123 years in the process. So the barn behind me is the original barn, so it's 123 years old. So I mean, everything we do here is hard, and like Allison said, there's a lot of days where you like don't have a lot to show for it, and it's really hard and time consuming, and us farmers rely on people like Allison to teach us how to hopefully treat some of our animals at home, so that we don't have to call her at 8 o'clock at night when a horse is colicking or things like that. So we do want to kind of work together with our vets. So yeah.
Can you explain where you're located?
We're in Ridgeway, so we're right outside. We're 7 miles outside Ridgeway, but 3 miles outside Johnsonburg. So, we have like a central location in Elk County.
Can you describe like a typical day? I'm sure your every day is different, but I'm sure you're up early or to bed late. I'm like, kind of explain, the farm, what it is about farming.
Yeah. So you're right. Every day is different. Like I said, today I'm finishing maple syrup. I also homeschool my kids, so they're home with me. During the day, we do a lot of things. Right now is maple syrup season. So we've been collecting a lot of sap from the trees that was back and forth. We've been boiling down for weeks on end. And so I'm finishing the last batch today because we pulled the taps over the weekend. We're done with that section because now we're going into planting season. We kick the chickens out of the high tunnel. We'll plant our lettuce and greens this coming week, and then so as of what you're going to do for the day, like for instance, today is crowded and busy in my schedule. I have maple syrup, I have to plant microgreens, and I have to do some paperwork, which that is the worst part of everything, is paperwork. And then I am traveling off to Pittsburgh this afternoon. I'm speaking about the importance of knowing your local farmer at a farm to table conference in Pittsburgh. So it's not always like that. A lot of times I spend at home, but I do like to get out, and I don't say advocate, I say advocate, because it's all about agriculture, and I like to really promote agriculture and do that kind of stuff.
Yes, I will vouch that Amanda does a lot of work in the community and even within the state to promote agriculture and keep it alive in our area, to keep it growing. And when you go into that agricultural career path, I think that's something that you find, especially in these rural areas, that we need a lot of help in that area. Would you agree with that, Amanda?
Yes, absolutely. Rural areas are really hard. And so one of the things, and I don't know if Allison does this or not, being a large animal vet, but one of the things that I do is we join the Farm Bureau, and we do a lot of networking that way, and it builds a lot of connections. It helps us stay up to date on things that their staff can do that we as farmers can't stay up to date on because we're busy out in the fields and things like that.
So, like, what is the future? I was gonna say the future outlook for your career, but like, can you talk about like, as a farm, some other jobs related to the farmer industry? Like, if students don't have like a family farm, but they want to be in that industry, I'm sure that you need services, from others to, run your farm efficiently.
Yes. So vets is one thing. We consult with some vets, definitely need veterinarians, especially when you're dealing with new animals. We went from wool sheep to hair sheep, and we are learning a lot, that there's a lot of differences and things like that with them. Engineers, the tractors these days, we got a brand new tractor a couple years ago, and it's full of computers and technology, and you need people to help you with those systems as well. Store owners, we co-op with the grocery store a lot to sell some of our products, so you want to have that relationship. Feed store owners, there's a feed store locally, but we also go to other feed stores and kind of work with them. I'm blanking on more, but there's a lot of different operation run. We use the conservation districts a lot that help with like stormwater management, manure storage plans, because farmers, we're only allowed to do certain things at certain times. So, the conservation districts help run manure practices. And then Penn State Extension, you got your 4-H educators, your agronomy experts, those types of people that help with like your soil samples and stuff like that. So what nutrients are in your soil. There's so much to it, but I think that we rely on a lot of people to help operate the farm and make it successful.
Yeah, there's lots of career options in the agriculture area, for sure. I'm going to throw it out to the students since we have students. Are there any students that have any questions? They want to ask. No questions?
It looks like a lot of them just changed classes. Oh, Chelsey, we can't hear you.
What do you guys want me to ask? My students want to know what your education requirements were for veterinarian school and to become a vet.
Sure. Vet school is notoriously difficult to get into just because there aren't many slots for the number of applicants. So as far as like high school, you need to be taking the higher caliber classes, Chem 2, Bio 2. If your school offers any of those, like college classes, AP type classes, those all help because they're a whole lot less expensive in high school than they're going to be when you go to college. And then when you get to college, you really can get into vet school with any major. You're just going to have to take some prereqs. So you can look, different vet schools have different requirements. Most of them are pretty basic, but then you'll have like a random school here or there that requires some specific course. So definitely as you're getting like further into your college degree, you would need to kind of come up with a list of schools that you want to go to and find out what their prereqs are to make sure that you've got all of those. Certain schools, like Penn Vet, some schools have like specific pre-vet majors, which are fine. That would be one thing that I would have done differently if I did it again, was I would have gone for like animal science rather than pre-vet. So what happens with the pre-vet major is you take a lot of classes that you wind up taking in vet school, which I was like, oh, great, I'll be prepared. They'll be easy. No. You just forget it all and have to learn it all again anyway. So my time would have been better spent maximizing my time at Penn State, which would have been taking those animal science classes that I'm never going to get to take again. So whether it's like dairy management, they have classes in the meat lab where you're learning about butchering and cuts and meat safety. So they have all sorts of equine management classes, beef classes, lambing classes. So that kind of stuff, like, yeah, you get it in vet school, but not really. Like you learn about these specific like dystocias or difficult births that you'll see, but you don't necessarily get to spend time on a farm working with the animals. So just focusing on being a well-rounded student, taking those more difficult classes and keeping your grades up. But then once you get into college, you need those prereqs, but really you just need to make yourself the most well-rounded veterinarian that you can be, in my opinion. And then opens more doors for you too, if you decide, to do kind of like you can be a practicing vet, but you can do all sorts of other stuff with your veterinary degree. Did that answer your guys' questions down in Miss Murray's class? If you want something more specific, let me know.
Gibbons has a hand up, a student. You guys want to unmute yourself and
You guys good? Yeah, we're good. They said they're good, that really was helpful. Thank you.
those classes getting ready for a question?
Oh, how long did it take you to become a veterinarian?
It's pretty much at minimum 8 years of postgraduate education. So a bachelor's degree, which you can do in a little less time if you're crazy. I did that. I again wouldn't do that. I wanted to get home and get married. But in hindsight, I could have taken a bunch of those classes I was just talking about at Penn State, and gotten that experience that I missed out on because I was just trying to get what I needed done so I could get out of there. But yeah, so 4 years of undergrad, a bachelor's degree, and then a veterinary degree, which is another 4 years. To be a human doctor, you then have to do a residency, pretty much always, I believe. To be a veterinarian, you don't. But if you do want to specialize and get more letters after your name, then you're going to be doing a residency and internship, which is more like you're learning by doing. So it's a little bit better, but you don't make any money. So opportunity costs.
What like if students that are interested in going to be a veterinarian, do you have any advice of things they could start now in high school, or things you think would help them to do in high school?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I'm a huge advocate for, whether or not you want to be a veterinarian or whatever you want to do, is you need to surround yourself with people that know more than you. So find a good mentor, someone that you can talk to, bounce ideas off of. Whether, if you want to be a vet, maybe you can find a vet, but maybe you just find someone who is in the agricultural industry, who has a lot of schooling and knows, what that kind of was like. It doesn't necessarily need to be an ag industry, have a lot of schooling. Those are two. You can be both, but just someone who's kind of in the same field or doing something similar to what you want to do, but is interested in helping you think through things, and giving you things to think about, because there's a lot of things that you don't think about when you're looking forward to your career that people who have gone through this process, have experienced. And that's really, really valuable. And then as far as things specifically to do, 4-H FFA, just get around animals. If you're like, I absolutely want to be a vet, then get in a veterinary clinic. A lot of these schools will let you, go, your high schools may let you go for like half a day, every other week to go job shadow. I did something like that at some point in high school. But just riding, if you want to be a large animal vet, find a large animal vet that'll let you follow them around. And just see if that's really what you want to do. And then you're going to need, the other thing is you're going to need a whole bunch of hours, I forgot about that, for your vet school application. So if you are doing that kind of stuff, start documenting it now, because you're going to have to put down how many hours you spent doing this and that. And so really just getting just the stuff that you would think that would be beneficial for a veterinarian is, and if say you really, if you really struggle with math, or you really struggle with physics or something, don't be prideful, get help, find a tutor. I was fine in high school, but in college, I was awful at physics. I failed my first physics exam, which you guys don't know me, but like that's bizarre. And then I still was able to come out with a good grade because I put in a ton of time, worked with professors and students who were better at it than me. I also really struggled with biochemistry. I was fine in vet school, but in college, no matter who taught it, how hard I tried, I couldn't get good grades on those exams. And I guess that's to say that sometimes you try and you still can't, but it's tough in college because sometimes you have professors that don't speak English very well, and who are more interested in research than teaching, especially at those bigger schools. So I've spent 1 year at Barron before I went to main campus for Penn State. And I think it's really nice to start off at those smaller schools, and you can have those professors who are more interested in teaching, and they tend to be more helpful.
Amanda, I'm going to throw that same question out to you about if students are interested in going into the agriculture industry, farming, what can they do, in high school?
FFA. I know if you're like in Elk County, there's no FFA chapter yet, but I think that it's in the works. I know that there's been some talk about it, but you definitely want to get around people that you want to be around. So look for farmers in the area, work on their farms. Some of us are looking for part-time help in the summers, get as much exposure as you absolutely can. And, get involved with Penn State Extension, there's different organizations that you can get involved with, Conservation District, be a volunteer. Any exposure that you can get now is going to help you in the long run. And so I always encourage that with students, that you want to be out there and learning from people that do know better than you. And that's not saying that we know everything. It's just that we're willing to learn and we've had experience.
So as we finish up, do you have any final advice, Amanda, for students? Or anything else you want to add that we haven't covered?
I would say, as my final advice, always be willing to learn no matter what your age. So if you're interested in an agriculture industry, it's always learning. So be willing to learn new things and never be hesitant to do that, because you never know what the outcome will be.
Allison, do you have any final, anything, you know, that we didn't touch on or anything you want to add?
I guess just to hammer a few like life advice things home for the kids that, sorry, young adults, you guys, you're not really that young. You're not kids, but that we're in and out. Whatever career you pursue, you need to be financially flexible. So if that means not taking on too much debt if you're not going to have a super high income producing job, so that you can do what you want to do with your life and not be trapped. I have so many friends that are miserable and trapped because they have a ton of debt. And it's very unfortunate for them. Whatever you want to do with your life, find some good people to surround yourself with, get mentors now. If you think you are interested in a field, find someone in that field that will talk to you and guide you. And it's not necessarily, they're not going to fall in your lap. You got to go get this information. And don't focus just on, you know, doing the bare minimum to get to where you want to be. Kind of like Amanda was talking about, like you're going to need to learn constantly, take those extra classes to make you more well-rounded. You never know how they're going to benefit you in the future. And if anybody has any specific questions, you guys are welcome to reach out to me later.
I will be providing the teachers with your contact information. So the students, if you do have, you know, individual questions you want to ask the speakers, feel free to reach out to them.
Hey, Amy?
Yeah.
Hi. One of our students does have a question here. We're dealing with this new technology, so so whoever wants to ask the question, go ahead.
So what do you normally do in the day?
We're talking to Allison.
Yeah, Allison. What do you normally do in a day?
Independent job. And on the job. On the job.
Like on the job?
Yeah. I was just trying to see which of these students said that because I couldn't see their mouths moving. Raise your hand. Oh, okay. Hi. Thanks. Yeah, so I'm a large animal vet. So my day would typically be palpating dairy cows for pregnancy, which means I don't know how, but you put on a glove and you literally are putting your arm up the cow's rectum. So you went to school for 8 years to do that. That's fun, but you're either palpating with your hand or using an ultrasound to diagnose. That's a big part of a dairy vet's day. And it's actually really helpful financially because it's a constant source of income. And then you're treating sick animals. So someone calls, hey doc, my cow's not eating. Hey doc, the calf broke its leg. This goat is kidding and there's nothing coming out. So there's those type of calls. And then being my own practice owner, there's quite a bit of time doing the stuff that if you had a larger practice, you would pay someone else to do. So ordering, taking phone calls, scheduling, paying bills, you know, you kind of have to do everything, stocking the truck. So that not as, you know, heroic and glamorous stuff still has to be done. There's a lot of laundry, a lot of cleaning because everything's covered in manure always. Yeah. And then there's the calls in evening, middle of the night. They're not too, it just depends on your area, how frequent those will be.
Okay, yeah.
I got another question. So what do you need to be able to do to be able to work as a vet like you?
Do you mean like physically?
Yeah, like what physical skills you need to do, because we came in late.
Yeah, sure. So the kind of physical skills that I do, actually the hardest thing I had to learn was how to palpate cattle. It's amazing, but like you put this hand in the rectum and at first all you feel is smush. And it just takes hours and hours of practice of teaching your hand to be able to see, basically, which is a weird thing to think about until you actually do it. And then you're frustrated because you go and you feel smushed and your teacher goes in and he's like, oh, it's 60 days pregnant, it's in the left horn. And you're like, great. That was very frustrating for me because I'm a fast learner when it comes to like reading, but the more of the hands-on stuff I'm not as fast at. So that's a big thing. You need to be able to, you need to have fine motor skills because you're going to be doing a lot of suturing. In dairy cattle, we do quite a few of what's called displaced abomasum surgery. So you're cutting a hole in the side of the cow and flipping a stomach around. So shoulder strength is important. You need to be comfortable around animals. So if you think you want to be a large animal vet, but you've never touched a horse, fix that now. And learn to be around them. And then you can kind of, a lot of it will depend on where you practice what you want to do. So some vets do a lot of feet work. I don't do very much work with feet because we have a good hoof trimmer in the area and I just have him do everything. But that would be something that's a little bit more manual labor. You need to be able to think. That's something they try to train you in vet school. Problem solving. If you like to problem solve, this would be a good job for you. I don't know if there's anything else you were picturing that large animal vets do that you're wondering about, if there's something specific there.
He's good. One piece of advice that I would like to give that really wasn't covered. I mean, I know that they both mentioned that they have to do a lot of paperwork, and that's one thing that they don't like to do. So if you are thinking of, sometimes you have to think about those other jobs. It might not be what your specialty is or what you want to do, but if you have a career path that might involve you owning your own business in high school, start taking some of those business courses. Learning how to do accounting and marketing. All of those things are just as important as, the specialty that you want to take on as your career.
Yeah, Amanda and I are both, not only are we in the agricultural industry, but we're both entrepreneurs. So all of those business classes, whether they're interesting to you or not, I mean, I think it's kind of interesting. So that's not a huge problem for me, but definitely any of those skills, take the economics classes, take the marketing classes, take the business classes. Our industry is cool that they see that we need that, and that's not something we're getting in school. So there's a lot of opportunities post your formal education to get that stuff. But if you can do it during and be that much further ahead, so you're not making, bad business decisions or struggling with that early on, like that would be beneficial.
And I find that in a lot of industries that people will tell me, the worst part of my job is the paperwork. So it's definitely, you're going to find that in a lot of career industries that you go into. So keep that in mind as you start looking at your career path. Amanda, you want to add something too?
Yeah, definitely. So the good thing about the ag industry right now is the governor has signed in a farm bill. I think it was last year. And so now the Small Business Development Center has broken off into an ag small business development center. So they're offering a lot of business classes right now. So I'm taking part in a social media 6 weeks cohort group where a bunch of us ag producers are getting together to figure out how do we present ourselves on social media. The other thing is I just learned how to do our own business taxes, so taxes, paperwork, accounting, all that stuff has been stuff that I wish I would have done in school. But I didn't. I have a minor in biology and, you know, a bachelor's in psychology. So business was not my major. And as an entrepreneur, I wish that I would have done it. But now there's opportunities post school. And like I said, you always want to be willing to learn and get connected with people, because you're going to learn so much and there's always something that you got to learn.
There's no more questions, then I think we'll finish this up. Bob, did you want to add anything?
No, I'd like to thank both of them. It was very, very interesting to hear both perspectives, sort of as the producer on Amanda's in and the veterinarian part with Allison. I did have one question with Allison. Do you do office hours, or do you work at all with small animals, even though you're a large animal veterinarian?
When right out of school, I worked part-time at a small animal clinic as I was starting my business and trying to get some income. And then as I took on some different, I actually did like a distance internship with dairy production, where I was feeding some herds. So I was formulating rations for some dairy herds across the state, and looking at other production issues that they had. So that provided a supplemental income. So I stopped doing the small animal job, which also was nice because it's difficult working a scheduled job when you're a large animal vet and you're trying to get new clients and there's an emergency and you can't go because you're working this other job. But at the same time, you need to make money. So there's definitely room. Like, it's ideally you could work for a practice that does small animal and the large animal, because then, together as a team, you make that decision. Do we go to the emergency or not? But yes, I did. But right now I am not doing any small animal, but I have the skills. I'm glad that I worked that job right out of school, because it helped me solidify those skills and help me become a more confident veterinarian. So like another option is you could be a relief vet. That's really big right now. So these vets are having a hard time hiring. So there's relief organizations where you work and you just go fill in at whatever clinic they need you to go to, and they can be pretty well paid and part-time. So just, with this degree, like if something were to happen, heaven forbid, to my husband and he had to stop working, like I can go and I can make money because I have this education. Right now I'm not going to be practicing. I'm still earning income from my family, and I'm able to be flexible with it. So that's just if you change your career, if you get a degree and you change your career, they can't take your education from you.
You're a one-person practice, then you don't have somebody scheduling or answering the phone when you're not there. And
nope, I have one cell phone, personal phone, work phone. That was a whole thing, figuring out how to manage this. But yeah, it's just me. And that's, I kind of I made the decision here about a year ago. I was either going to need to grow or cut back. And I chose to cut back. The first thing I cut was working with horses, because that just made the most sense for me. But if I wasn't, I was going to be adding on a technician to help me some days. I wasn't really looking yet for like a secretarial person, but that would be another thing to add. A vet that I shadowed or did an externship with in vet school when I was with her, it was her, and I think she had 2 part-time veterinary technician assistants. So they would just go, or no, she had 1 occasionally that would go with her. And she also did a lot of babysitting for her. Now she has 2 veterinarians, office staff, multiple technicians. She has an AI guy that goes and does AI and hoof work and travels around with a chute. So she went, from this one doctor with this nanny / technician to this huge practice So you can, there's just a lot of options.
It's the same in farming too. So like if you want to grow, you either make the decision to grow or you make the decision to cut back, you know, and right now we made the decision to grow. So, and I'm the only one that's here full time. Everybody else works off the farm full time. So it's a one-man show, one personal cell phone, it's the same thing. When you're an entrepreneur, you have to do what you have to do. And so like Allison does a lot with herself, and it's the same thing here.
Very good. Thank you very much, both of you.
I saw a cool picture a while back, and it was a family at dinner, and they were like 3 brothers with their wives and their kids, and they're like, how you know that all 3 men are entrepreneurs, and like the 3 guys are like standing up around the room like on their phones talking, while the rest of the family is, you know, trying to enjoy dinner and have dinner at a restaurant, which is cool on one sense, and then, you know, not cool on another sense. So yeah, I think as an entrepreneur, as Amanda said, it's just, you are never really off the clock.
I thank you both so much for joining us today. Students, I hope that you learned a lot, and I encourage you guys to join us on April 20th. That will be our last session this school year for our career cafes, and our focus will be on careers in healthcare. So I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Thanks.